PAX was good. PAX was good. That's a good segue into what we're about to talk about. Um, because that's the first thing we're going to start with is talking about PAX. Because it was a pretty good event. It was a pretty good event. It was a good time. This is me. Day one. This is me, day one. Waking up early in the morning. Obviously, hadn't showered yet. You can tell, hair sticking out. But, yeah, whatever. But yeah, so this is the beginning of PAX Unplugged, and I figured we'll kind of talk a bit about it, right? Talk a bit about what I saw there, what I liked, what I didn't like, because it flew by. It flew by. Unfortunately, one of the big regrets I had is that I didn't get to talk to as many people as I wanted to. I got to meet tons of people, and I finally got to meet Nelson, right? Him and I have been playing board games for like 2 years, and I just met him for the first time ever, which is kind of weird. It's kind of surreal. So anyway, this is day one, me getting there. So when you go to PAX, right? For those that don't know, so when I went in 2019, you had to like snake outside the building, like back and forth. It was a huge pain, right? You had to snake back and forth. It was a huge pain. And you wait outside for a really, really long time. This time they got you inside pretty much like right away, which was really nice. That was pretty cool. And I really liked that. And then when you went up, there was like 4 pens basically of people, right? There was an A line, a B line, a C line, a D line. But like the line was like, almost 10 people wide, right? So they just shoved you in there. And then if that got too full, they put you in the back. Anyway, so we showed up about half an hour early, which is the same we did the last time we went to PAX Unplugged in 2019. Last time we did this, we ended up like in about the D area. This time we were in B. So there was definitely, in my opinion, less people than the first time around, in my opinion. There was less people. So anyway, when we first got there, there was like the free play table area. There's like the booths in the back to like meet like all the publishers and whatnot. And then there's a first look table. And we always like to go to the first look first to see what it's all about, right? To see what's there, see what we're liking, what we're not liking. So we went. And the very first game we had to play was Heat Pedal to the Metal. Now, it seems to me that there is a lot of driving games coming out recently. Like this is the thing right now because probably because Formula One is so incredibly popular right now that people are trying to capitalize on. So here is the board itself. And what's cool about this game is it came with a bunch of different boards, which I thought was pretty interesting. I thought it was neat how they did that. But essentially on this game, you start off with your couple of cars and you use cards in your hand to race around the track, which is a fairly neat idea, right? It felt kind of controlled, I guess would be the best way to put it, right? It felt good that you use the cards in your hand to decide what you could do. And the big like gimmick of the game was on the corner here, you can see that there's a number. You basically can't play too high of a number collection through the corner or you spin out, right? So a lot of it's your fate is kind of in your hands with just making sure you play the right cards. You draw back up and you have to make sure you get good draws. There's ways to overcome some bad draws by using heat that goes in your discard pile. It eventually gets shuffled in your hand and then becomes kind of like a dead card almost that can really like gunk up your hand and mess it up. So it's a pretty interesting concept, the game. It's a pretty good catch-up mechanic. I liked it. But it's one of those things that like, I played it and I don't know if I ever really need to like own it, right? If somebody was like, hey, you want to play this game? I'd be like, yeah, sure. That seems cool. But it's not one of those things I would ever be like dying to play again. So it's definitely neat. I heard solo's not bad for it. And if I ever found it for like $10, maybe I would get it. But I don't know. But that was the very first game we played. Good game. Oops, wrong button. Oops. Okay, so then after that, we went to the Roxley booth and we enjoy their booth usually because it's pretty busy and they staff it pretty well for like teaching games, right? And this was for Badlands, right? So we went there in 2019 and we played Dice Throne, which was like my surprise hit from 2019, and I kind of kept my eye out with Badlands. Now, the theme of it, like this whole like Mad Max theme, I don't like it at all. It's not for me. It never interested me when it like was first like announced and whatever. Did not care. But I really like Rockstar as a publisher. I think they do I think they do a pretty good job with their games. And we got there out on the table, and one of the things that's kind of nuts is with this, they had 3 tables set up, right, for Badlands, and a bunch set up for Dice Throne, right, a bunch set up, and a bunch of people like teaching and whatnot. So they set up a table in front of us and a table behind us, and we were in the middle. And there was a staff member from Roxley teaching the one table, and a staff member behind them, and no one for our table. And like my buddy and I and this other 2 gentlemen next to us were like trying to figure out how to play the game, right? And like we kept trying to get their attention, like, hey, can you teach us? And they're like, no, we can't. Like basically, nah, sorry. And I don't do this to like bash on Roxley or anything like that. They just seemed very, very swamped, and I'm sure they were short staffed that day. But the reason I bring it up is because what we did was we looked up the rules on our phone, because they don't just give you the rule book there, because obviously someone's like supposed to be there to teach you it. But the rules were so straightforward and to the point that like we could just read it on our phone and get through the game, right? We still made a few rules mistakes, but we were able to get through it and do pretty well. And honestly, it was a good game, right? It was a lot of fun. I'm not a big head-to-head type of board gamer, especially things that don't have solo. And like I said, I really don't like this theme. I do not like the Mad Max theme whatsoever. But I like bright colors, and I like neoprene, and I like these little puck things that are like big chip poker puck things. I don't know what they call them, but I like them too. And on the other side is like a water droplet. It's resources. So the whole way this game works is essentially down at the bottom here, you have 3 locations. The locations are basically your life, right? They can only get hit twice and then you lose. But you put these different individuals out here to either block or to do attacks or different things. And all your resources is water. And you start off with 3, but you can use this water silo to gain a 4th one by like, delaying your water usage to the next round, right? You draw from the same deck, which is probably the most interesting thing, right? There's only one big pile of cards on the table, and both you and your opponent draw from it, which I thought was the kind of the cool mechanic to it that I really enjoyed. I thought that was pretty neat and interesting. And because of that, like it made it feel very, I don't know, fair, balanced. Like even though it comes down to card draw, like it felt good. So yeah, really enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun. Once we learned the rules, we were able to knock this out in like 30 minutes, I want to say. Like it was very snappy. It was a very snappy game. It was pretty cool in the way that it worked. It was so good. It's one of the 2 games I purchased at PAX. I only purchased 2 games at PAX. This is one of them, and I love it. I love this game. I bought the deluxe version because again, I'm a sucker for neoprene. But yeah, I thought this was a really good game. I thought this was really fun. And I know I'm doing like a poor job of explaining, but I'm just trying to give like a 10,000 foot overview of it. But it was unique enough. It was different enough. And more importantly, it wasn't trying to be like anything that it wasn't, which I know sounds weird, but like it wasn't trying to add in all these crazy mechanics or anything to like try to hit all these different criteria or anything. It was just like a head-to-head quick card combat game, right? And that's what it is in a post-apocalyptic world. So big fan of that. All right, so next up, we went to, after we walked the booth some more, said hi to a bunch of people, got to meet some people. We went to the board game library where you can like borrow board games from their library. So that's what we did. And while we were at Plaid Hat, their booth, they had Ashes Reborn. They didn't have Ashes Reborn, but they had the original Ashes that you could play. Now, I don't know what the difference between the 2 of these are. I really don't. But what I do know is I don't think I really care for Ashes. So the way this works is down here, you can see you have like a hero, right? A main hero. You have your deck of cards. And then you have like the side deck of cards, and then you put people out here, and you use these dice as resources. Can't wait for the co-op version. That could be more interesting. But basically, you draw cards and you play them. There's icons right over here on the card, and you play them based off of what dice you have, right? And you just keep going until you run out of essentially dice, right, or things you can do. Now, when you worked your way up, like into it, like when you first started, it was kind of neat, right? Like, what am I gonna play from my hand? Am I gonna play this Hammer Knight? Am I gonna play this Hammer Knight? Am I gonna play these cards or whatever? All these different things that you could possibly do to improve Ashes, right? Or improve your hero. And you went through and it was doing all right. But what the game eventually broke down for my buddy and myself, I guess, is that they were just summoning snakes and I was just summoning rhinos. And long story short, rhinos beat snakes every single time, apparently. So it was nothing, right? It felt like we were just going back and forth doing the same exact thing for the last like 20 minutes of our 1 hour play. Like the first 20 minutes was kind of cool. The next 20 minutes we were like kind of figured out what we're doing. And the last 20 minutes was just like, nope, that's it. You're done. There's nothing interesting here. So like, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of it. I don't know if I would really ever play it again. If they did a co-op, that could be interesting. If they did solo, it might be. But I felt really limited in my deck. And now again, this is the Ashes original version. Not like the redone one. So I don't know if they fixed things in the redone one. I don't care that much for PvP card games anymore, but after seeing the co-op version on Team Covenant, I think it'd be fire. I have to watch it, right? And like, here's the thing, like, I really like the idea of using dice as resources. Like, I thought that was really cool. You know, I liked how it worked. Like, it was very snappy between turns, right? Like, I could do a main action and a side action. They could do a main action, side action, vice, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And like, I liked that. I thought that was well done. It just, we got in a rut, right? We just got in a rut, and there's not a ton of customization that, at least from what the game told us to do, that we could do. Now, again, Reborn might be different, and then it could be more interesting. But co-op, I would definitely try a co-op version of this. For sure. All right. So, and then the last thing we did is we played Marvel Champions, right? My buddy has never played Marvel Champions. Obviously, on this channel, we play a lot. And I say, look, let's go borrow it from the library. We'll play. I'll help you along. And it was a weird experience for me because I've never taught Marvel Champions. I realized, like, ever. I know how to play, and I play with people that know how to play, and I don't know how to play myself, or I've never taught anyone myself. So I was Captain Marvel. He was Spider-Man, and we went through Rhino Standard 1, and I kind of just let him do whatever he wanted to do. So I think I played Aggression, and I think he played Justice. Or no, he played Leadership, I think. I just let him do what he wanted to do, and I kind of just like support him, right? I just sat in the back and just did like some thwarting and whatnot for him. I kind of just made sure he didn't die or anything or whatever. So I think I may know the other game you bought, possibly. It was on Instagram, I think. So they played an LCG before, but it's tough in the gates. Yeah, so he had never played a co-op LCG before. He never played Arkham. He never played Marvel. And he never played Lord of the Rings, but he had played LCGs that were PvP, which I guess kind of helped. I don't know. But what I will say with this, you know, we did well. We won. To be fair, it wasn't even that fair because it's kind of funny. So, right, I'm not giving him any ideas or plans of what we're doing. Like, I'm telling him, do whatever you want, and I will just support you in whatever you do. And of course, he like flipped the villain before he was ready to flip. So Rhino just started going like nuts on him. So like, I'm trying to like defend for him and whatnot. And luckily, I already had a bunch of energy channels like stashed up, so like I could just hit him for 10 like repeatedly. So I just knocked out all of his health. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't realize you could do that much damage. It's been sitting there on the table." I was like, "Oh, you know, I just wanted to like let you feel the game out and like feel what it is." But I will say two things. One, it's really weird to play with these dials again and play with like cardboard pieces. That felt really weird. And it was really weird to play with cards that weren't sleeved, right? Really weird. It turns out I'm really used to sleeves and acrylic now. So there we go. Next up is, day 2. This is my happy face because we were in line and just hanging out. And this guy's just staring at the back of my head. Saturday's generally known as like the really busy day, right? Really, really busy. And we were a little worried about it because last year was just like such a pain. You couldn't move anywhere. And again, it was busy, but it wasn't as busy as 2019. And that was the general overall thoughts and feelings I had from this show, was that it just wasn't as busy as it was in 2019, in my opinion. So we went to the first look table again, and this is Scott Alm's new head-to-head game called Beer and Bread, where you basically make beer and bread. The cool thing with this, you can see this white marker back here, and it keeps track of the rounds. And on when it hits green is different than when it hits, brown, right? And the main gimmick of this game, which is kind of interesting, is you get these cards that are right here. This is mine. This is my buddy's. And you try to collect these resources to play these cards out there. But every single time you play a card down, right, you switch hands on the green dates, which is pretty easy, pretty interesting mechanic, right? So like you could be kind of strategizing for cards that are in your hand, but like you play a card to gain some resources, let's say, and then you were like, okay, the next turn I want to play this card's in my hand. Oh wait, I have to switch. So I'm giving them to my buddy, and I'm like, oh god, I hope he doesn't see that card and play that card I want. And they're multi-use cards, right? You can use them to either put in the bottom of the board for upgrades, or use them for beer and bread, or use them to get resources, or whatever. Like there's so many things that cards can do. So it's not even like, oh, as long as he doesn't have the resources, I'm fine. It's like, no, he could use it several different ways. And I like that about this game. I like that. I like multi-use cards in general. I think that's a really fun and cool mechanic. But that whole aspect of it was really interesting. Now, on the opposite days where it's on these brown spots instead, there'd be 3 cards up on the top here where these extra tokens are. There'd be 3 cards up there, and you can switch from up there. So you keep your hand, you don't trade with your partner, but you can switch with the top there. But if you switch, you have to play that card. All right. So that was the big difference with this, of the head-to-headness of it. And I'll be honest, what kind of frustrated me with this is I was crushing my buddy through all this. Like if you could see most of the points on the table, it's all pretty much open, and there's no real like hidden points that you can get. Crushing. I made a really bad turn the second to last round, and then I lost. So that was pretty not great. And like I said, I really like this game. I really like this game as a head-to-head game. I like Scott Alms as a designer. I think he's really good. But when I compare this to what we played previously, which was Radlands, I'm going to choose Radlands every time. 100% of the time, I'm going to choose Radlands. So, plays and then cooled on it really fast. I could see that. Like, because with Radlands too, we were able to play like, so, all right. So we played the booth game once, then we brought it back with us and played like 2 times or something like that, 3 times. And like, I was still very into it, but I could see how like you could play it for like 4 hours. It'd just be like, okay, I've seen most of the cards, or like whatever, just a little too much nickel and diming back and forth. I can see that. I think the coolest thing for us was at the end of the second night, we went back to the hotel room and we hung out and we're like, all right, let's play a board game or two, because one of our friends from high school is actually a board game designer. So we were getting a drink with him later. And I was like, okay, let's play a game, whatever. And one of the things that I liked was it felt several times that I was about to lose the game, and I made some good moves, and I was able to get myself back into it. And I never felt like I was ever completely out of the game. I lost, I think, both 3 times or whatever it was. I think I lost every single time, but I never felt completely out of it. And like the times I thought I was about to be eliminated, I could fight my way back into it. So I kind of liked that. But I can see what you mean by nickel and diming, the back and forth, because it is just like you ping some damage here, right? And then you ping some damage here, and then you ping some damage here. Like I get what you mean with that. So I could definitely see that. But again, if it was like an hour-long game, I'd be like, it's too much. But because we could knock it out so fast, like that stuff doesn't bother me, and it's just quick to pick up, easy to play. That's what I was all about. Versus Beer and Bread. Beer and Bread took us, I want to say, at least an hour to play, which again is a fine amount of time, but it just, I don't have a ton of time to play head-to-head games that are that long anymore. I don't. Or if I do, I want it to be like a big event, which will be important for a little bit. All right, so after that, I had stopped by the Aeon's End booth, and they were doing package deals. And we saw what they had there, and I was trying to talk to them, but they were swamped. They were absolutely swamped. So we went to the board game library, and we got Aeon's End. And here's the thing about Aeon's End. I have somebody on Instagram who I trust a lot with board games for solo board gaming, and they did not like this game at all. Right? They hate this game with a burning passion. They thought it was terrible. They thought it was fiddly. They just didn't like anything about it. I have another Instagram friend who loves this game. Absolutely loves it. So I was kind of stuck in a weird spot. I was like, you know what? This is the only time I can really play this for free. So might as well check it out. And there's a bunch of different player boards. You pick your player, who you want to be, and they get a certain amount of cards. And it's like 5 cards they get in hand and 5 cards in the discard pile. And you go against, you can kind of barely see it, but there's a main enemy up here, and they get like a deck of cards to the side. There's also like a town that you're more or less trying to protect, right? You're trying to protect this town. Okay, cool. So you go through, and the weird thing is there is no official turn order. All right, so there's a deck of cards, and inside this deck of cards, there's 2 for the first player, 2 for the second player, which was me. You can tell by this number 2 here, and then 2 for the enemy. And you shuffle the deck of cards, and you flip it over, and it tells you whose turn it is. So you can't really prepare, like, okay, we know that after I go, the villain's going to go, and then when you go his turn, you can't do that. It's really, really interesting. So for us, it would be maybe the villain would go, and then my buddy would go twice. And now we know, okay, he's not going to go again for quite some time, but I'm going to get to go twice, and the villain's going to get to go once. So I'm trying to plan out my turn that way now. So it's really kind of interesting. And again, when you discard it kind of in the order you wanted, and you didn't shuffle your discard back into your deck. You just turned it over. So you should be able to kind of control what comes through your hand, right? It's a true deck builder. It was really cool. It was really cool how it works. And there's basically a giant market of like 3, 6, I think it was 9 cards. And some of these cards are just resource stuff to try to get cards from that market, right? So you're just pulling cards from the market to try to like get more powerful and do more things. And basically the way you play a card is in these things called breaches. Now, I started with a breach open, which means I can play a card. And when you play a card, it doesn't activate immediately. It gets played, and then it activates next round, which is really like kind of cool because you don't know exactly when you're going next, right? It might be you right away. It might not be you. It might not be you for a long while. So you can just plop your card right out there, right? And then you don't know when that thing's going to activate. On the rest of these spots, though, you can slowly spend basically resources, money, whatever you want to call it, to turn these cards until you get to this top part facing up, and then you pay another resource, and you can flip it over, and it becomes another one of these open breaches. Now, when you spin it by paying for it, you could play a card on it, so it's kind of like a way to still like be able to play 2 cards at once, but it's kind of expensive. But you can do it. At so much the variable turn order adds so much tension to the game late game, and it's amazing. 100% agree. That to me like stood out as like the coolest thing I've seen in the game, right? The whole deck building aspect is basically Dominion, right? It's basically Dominion, and that's fine, right? The market kind of the same as Dominion. It's been a long time since I played Dominion, so it's not a great comparison. I apologize. Right, that's fine. The enemy, we didn't do a good job with the enemy, and they kept attacking either us or the town that we had to save. We thought the town was going to die a lot faster. It turns out I got wiped out really, really quick because you only start with 10 life, and that's not a lot of life, it turns out. So I was getting demolished pretty fast, but there's ways to like heal yourself and go through. It was honestly some of the most fun I had playing like a game in general. Like it was a lot of fun. It was shockingly fun. So I am a huge Aeon Z fan. Each of the villains, I think there was 3 in the core box, if I remember correctly, 3 or 4, and they all seem different. They all seem pretty cool. This one, again, we just managed really poorly. The way their deck of cards works out is like they can flip and something bad happens, and it's not always, again, with them, it's not something bad happens right away usually. It's something is going to be bad that happens, right? Usually there's timers on them. So like you're trying to race to do something before this terrible thing happens. So it's like, it helps balance out how bad it could be. And even when it flips like a minion over, the minion, I don't think, from what I remember, does anything right away to you. So you don't even get like, messed up or screwed over that way. It felt fair. Excuse me. The whole time it felt really fair. And I guess that's the big thing. Aeon's on his table. That's cool. That's good to know. My Kickstarter addictive friend has everything. We just have. So here's the thing. I went to the booth and I said to the lady, "Hey, you have bundle pricing?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "How much for everything?" She's like, "What do you mean?" was like, everything. Like everything that's come out. How much? And she's like, well, we don't have everything. And I was like, well, I don't want it. Like, I want everything. Like if I'm gonna get true bundle pricing, I'll wait till their next Kickstarter. And I looked at their Kickstarter, and they have so much content. I don't know if I want the legacy stuff, but if it helps bring down the price, then okay, I'll do it. That's the only thing. Like I'm not a big legacy game player. That's not for me. But I know they're heavy into their Kickstarters and getting all their Kickstarter stuff. And there's stuff I could probably not get anymore because it's Kickstarter exclusive, which is fine. It's just gonna slowly drive me mad. But they were selling this there for like $50, I want to say. And like I've seen it on Amazon randomly drop down like in the low 40s, high 30s. So I was like, well, I'll just wait for the Amazon price to drop back down. And I have to research because I want to do, I don't know if I should just get only the core box or I should get some of the other things, right? Like some of the stuff that seems like more complicated later on, I heard like it gets kind of overly tough, but still like it was such a cool mechanic. I could think I want to get into it. Their legacy mode is actually pretty good. All their content can be played across all games so far. So with the big box expansions, you don't need the core box, do you? Like you can just play from that. I argue to either start with Aeon's a new legacy or New Age. I'd probably do New Age then. Is that one of the newer ones? Is New Age one of the new ones? Us, you and the other addicts. I've saved so much money since I met. But yeah, this was one of my biggest hits, I would say. And again, I would have probably bought it, but it just I've seen it cheaper on Amazon, and I need to do other research on the other big boxes because I don't know if I fully want to dive in 100% into this. I think I do, but that is a big ask. It's a big commitment. But I really like this game, and I didn't play it solo, so I don't know what it's like solo, but I hear it's good, and I could see how the mechanics would translate into solo and be pretty interesting. New Agents is newer breaches, so I say start there. And then, okay, cool. All right, yeah, I'll have to look into that then. New Age, but yeah, I liked it so much. It was such a good game. All right, next up is Cloudspire. Deck builds where you build the game rather than. It's weird, right? It is weird because it makes the game feel slow in the beginning, but because of how like you basically play like a card or two and that's it. Like there isn't a ton you can do. Like it felt quick. I don't know. And again, I don't have a lot of traditional. I don't have a lot of games that are like pure deck builders like that. So like for me, like I'm kind of like intrigued by the fact that like I don't have that or something like that, you know. All right, so one of the last games we did was Cloudspire. Now, Cloudspire is Chip Theory Games. Cloudspire is one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely love it. The solo can be really finicky, though. It can be really, really finicky, and I'd never played multiplayer. I played a ton solo, and I knew the game pretty well. So I told my buddy, hey, they have it on the thing where we can borrow it. Let's try it. I was like, I think you'll like it. And, you know, he looks at this and he's read reviews where it's like, well, you know, they say it's really complicated. I go, no. It's actually a really easy game, right? The way the game works is actually kind of really easy. The complicated part is understanding your faction. So, like, I'm Heirs faction. He was, I think, Grove Tenders. But I was Heirs. And I told him, like, when you get your cheat sheet, you'll see that there's the way your faction works is just kind of like intertwined with so much, right? There's so much going on. And it can be really tough to understand all of it, but like, let's just play for fun and get the feeling of it. And, you know, we're creating stacks of chips, we're going across our map and all this stuff. And he fell in love with the game. It was really cool because like within the first like phase, he was like, dude, I really like this. This is really good. And it re-solidified this game for me as just one of my absolute favorite multiplayer games. Like if I was to sit down and have like a long board game session, which I mean, this probably only took us about 2 hours, so it wasn't like really, really long, but a longer session. This is the game I want to play. I love this game multiplayer, and I love Chip Theory games. Obviously, I'm an addict for most of their stuff, but I don't mind Cloudspire for solo. I think it's pretty good. Cloudspire though for versus heads up is amazing. I absolutely love it. So, where would I put this in my solo rankings? Cloudspire. Probably top 25, not top 10. It probably never get to top 10. The problem is with this is that there's just too much to do, right? Like the one thing that kind of stinks with it is getting the AI movement down and understanding how like it attacks and what it does and all that stuff. Like that part kind of stinks. And like it tells you what they build out and whatever, but like you still have to like do all their movement. So it just feels like you're playing 2 games at once. It's a lot to set, like it's a lot to set up. And it never feels like a true representation of the game because it's just, yeah, it's just a pain. It's just a pain. And if you have an entire evening of 3 hours, it's not bad. And there's a ton of scenarios. I mean, I have not gotten close to all of them yet. There are a ton of scenarios, but it's just one of those things that like, unless I have a ton of time to kill, like I'm not going to do it. But versus 100%, 100%. As a versus game, it's top 5. As a solo game, probably top 25, but it's squeaking in there. And it'll probably fall down eventually. Okay. What's after that? Okay. So my buddy wanted to play Android Netrunner. And I hear great things about Android Netrunner. I hear how it's a fantastic game, that the theme is so good, that the card play is so good, everything about it is so good. So I said, yeah, I would love to try this out. I would love to play this and see what all the hype is about. I can get why people like this. I can get with the theme, how it clicks and how people are into it. This game is not for me. I could not do it, dude. We made it, I think, halfway through a playthrough. And no, it's not for me. I also wanted to run over nets, but I tried to sprain my ankle. Dude, I would have rather sprained my ankle than play this. I know people really like this game. It's not a knock on it. But early Fantasy Flight, you could tell that they really wanted theme to come through on things, that they would sacrifice basic things in the rulebook for theme. Like, for example, this is an R&D. It's not an R&D deck, just R&D, right? This is something, and I don't remember what that's called. This was like a part of HQ, but not HQ. This was an offsite server, I want to say. And this was, I think, also an offsite server. I don't know. But had everyone go negative on that, I can't. We read through that rulebook front to back. Every single word, we read through it, I don't know, 4 times, right? And then I read it a bunch of times. And then we played very slowly with each thing, because you have to learn not only your side, but the opponent's side. Because if you don't understand what they're doing, you don't understand the game. Again, I'm sure once you get it, it's a phenomenal game. The problem is we spent 2 hours trying to learn the game, played halfway through a game, and I was still getting confused what certain things were, because they won't just call a deck of cards a deck of cards, right? It's not like for Arkham Horror, it's not like my investigator, wish list, whatever. No, it's just your deck, right? It's just your deck. And again, I get they're trying to do theme and make it very thematic, but it's just too much. It's just too much. I couldn't do it. So, there was just too much with it. And I think I mostly understood my side. I was the corporation. I think I mostly understood my side. I still have no idea what my buddy was trying to do on that side. Like, literally no idea. So, I never actually played, but I watched Team Covenant how to play videos and made it very clear, even with all of our. That's awesome that they could do that, because it's just, we tried to watch. I don't know if it was Rodney or not. We tried to watch somebody, and we probably should have watched Team Covenant. But even after watching them, we just went, I have no idea what they're saying. It's like a basic game, but all the bluffing head games, yeah. It was just too much. So I'm getting back into Netrunner myself. You have to let me know how it goes. Let me know how it goes, because I could not do it. I wanted to. I just could not do it. And here's the thing too. I will say this. I'm not writing off the game forever, because I've heard too much of how good it is. Right? So I feel like if somebody who knows the game really well said, hey, D20, you want to sit down and like learn this game? Yeah, okay. I'll do it. 100%. I'll do it. As long as they could just straight up teach me what I have to do. I think that's a part of the problem is that we had 2 people trying to do this, trying to learn, after just playing board games for about 8 hours straight, and we're trying to learn a new game. I think that was the problem. So it had that going against it too. All right, so then we went out to eat. Everyone judged my Philly cheesesteak. I don't care what you all say. It was actually pretty good. All the cheese is on the bottom. You can't see on the top. I get it. They didn't have Cheese Whiz, so that's a thing too. But whatever. All the Philly people got mad at my cheesesteak. Then I had beer. That was fun too. All right, day 3, last day. So last day I was only there for a little while. We had stuff to do later in the day, so we couldn't stay super late or super long. But CGE, Czech Gaming Edition, had their own area. They weren't on the show floor, but they had their own area. And I wanted to go check it out because I wanted to learn this game. Lost Ruins of Arnak, because all I hear is how good this game is. And they were running a special promo with basically the base game, and the expansion was like pretty cheap, right? It was not that much money at all. So my buddy and I went and we sat down, and the guy was like, well, let's wait for somebody else to come up. And another lady joined us, and we played a 3-player game. So again, I don't know how this plays solo. But what I can tell you is that there was a lot of hype around this game and how good the game is and how much fun it is and how unique it is. This game is crazy good. Crazy good. It didn't do anything like super new and interesting, right? It's what, hand management with some worker placement, but it does it well. It does it really well. I really like this game. Love this game. Love me some Arnak. Can bust through games in like 20 minutes. I can see how it goes fast. Once we got the hang of it, because you do, what is it, 5 rounds, right? Like once we got the hang of during round 1, round 2 and round 3, we only played 3 rounds. But like we finished in like less than an hour, 3 rounds while teaching or being taught. And the guy was taking his time teaching us too, which is fine, right? He was taking his time, which was really nice. I have to try it on Board Game Arena. That setup and put away time is criminal from the box. I could see that. I could see that taking a long time. But yeah, physically playing it, holy cow. And that's what I hear. Like, that's what the guy was saying. Like, if you had time to go through it, he's like, round 5, there's a lot going on. And I was loving what it was already. I'm far too poor for this hobby. Yeah. And to be honest, like, I already forgot what I paid for it, but it was really cheap at Pax Unplugged. Like the final day at Pax Unplugged on Sunday, again, a very dead day. There was very few people there, comparatively. But what a lot of booths will do is discount whatever they have remaining. So a lot of stuff gets sold out, right? Radlands, for example, got sold out the first day. They were trying to find some, right? So they sold out. I don't even know if they got any more. They don't want to ship all their stuff back, so they were like discounting everything at CGE. So it's like stuff like that. You can get games cheap. But long story short, you basically start off, you can see up here is with a deck of cards. They're pretty basic and whatever. And you have 2 worker meeples, and you can place them in any of these little circles down here, and you have to pay the cost that's on the bottom here. Now, you could also go explore up here. And up here leads you to like a fun cave or whatever, and a monster's in there, and then you have to face a monster, which is pretty sweet. And then you can basically upgrade on this track, or you can buy new cards up here, or you can get fear cards, which like gum up your hand, or you can get all these little tokens that do things on your boards. Oh, and then when you get the expansion, all the boards are different. So it's just fun. It was just straight up fun. It was so much fun to play. It was so enjoyable that, yes, this is the other game that I bought because I loved this game. I thought this was so great. Solo is all right. Pretty much just a bot that scores points and blocks. Super easy to run. Not quite as good, but it's enough to scratch the itch. That's fine. That's what I'm looking for, man. This is a game I do want to play with friends. There's not a ton of times that we get like a good group together to play. I feel like I could teach this actually relatively fast, right? Down here is this little cheat sheet, and the guy was like, you can basically play the game off the cheat sheet. And you hear that line so many times in board gaming, but you could, right? You legit could, maybe with the exception of like 1 or 2 small things. Oops. But this could be run off the sheet, which was really nice. This is a game that I could sit down with new players and old, and we could probably get through this pretty quickly. And thematically, it was fun. Thematically, it was unique. It was all well done, put together, whatever. The components were nice. It was a great price. So simple pickup. Most people are around 2 and about 50. Right, exactly. I like the solo for it. It's a nice way to familiarize Yeah, I can see that. So yeah, this was the last game I picked up, and this is the last game we played. After this, we basically just went to we went up to the show floor. We walked around. We kind of went to see what else was going on, right? Like see if there's anything else exciting. Really, there wasn't. We were trying to meet up with some people. You players tend to forget their yeah. Luckily, the guy was there, and he's just like, you can actually do more than you think. And then like I'd be sitting there like, no, you can't. And he's like, wow, what you can do is you can play this card. And like he wasn't like alpha gaming me or anything like that. He was just trying to be helpful because like, you could tell a couple times he felt bad, like he was like playing for me. I was like, no, bro, like this is how I learn, right? So you're good. But it was a really fun game. It was a really fun game, really enjoyable. I really liked it. But yeah, that was a big one for me. That was a big one. I'm really excited to play a full game of it to see how like the combos go. And again, for solo, I'm excited to play it just to see how solo goes. So that's what we played. As far as any regrets, there was a table for Dune Imperium, right? That I've still wanted to play that game. I still haven't. But I would like to play that game at some point. Still haven't. What was the other thing that was? I didn't get to see everyone. That really stunk. There's a lot of people that I wanted to see that I didn't get to see because it's a weird show for it. It's hard to run into people there. Like it's just a giant empty space. Not being able to buy all of Aeon's End, 100%. Yeah. TI 3 players is some of the most fun, and you can have board gaming. Also, Imperium looks immersive. Yeah. I mean, I hear like for multiplayer, it's fantastic. It's just one of those things like I don't play multiplayer as much as I would like to. And I heard between Arnak solo and Dune solo that people liked Arnak more. So that's also another reason why I went with it and why I focused on that more. There was some smaller companies I wish I got to spend some time with, which kind of stinks because I always enjoy seeing the smaller companies that are out there, and that kind of stunk. Because I like to pick up small box games from small companies because I like to support them, and that's something future channel goal is to do more of that here. I have ideas for it, but I need to like figure it out and whatever. Doing so is actually really good, more to run, but it feels like real plays. That's pretty cool. I mean, eventually, if it's super on sale, I'm probably gonna get it at some point, just not yet. I'm trying to think. They had Madara there. It was for $200. They had all of Madara for $200. I came this close to buying it. And then I realized I have nowhere to store that freaking box. That is the biggest box I've ever seen in my life. Not the biggest box. It's top 5 boxes I've seen in my life. That thing is huge. And I had nowhere to put it. And I really wanted to get Madara. Because I hear nothing but good things about it. I also have an app that nice. Have you seen the new Everdell box? Yeah, I saw it. That's a big one too. Bigger than Gloomhaven. Close to original Gloomhaven, not Frosthaven. It's close to Gloomhaven. It's skinnier, but like wider and deeper wise. Like bigger this way and this way. But like Gloomhaven was like fatter, right? Everdell, they had new stuff for too. Right? They had the kids version of Everdell. My Little Everdell, I think. Which, by the way, like I know a bunch of people like and you didn't even get us a t-shirt. I did not. I didn't. I didn't get anything good. Oh, that's what I was talking about with My Little Everdell, right? I really like that they're making more games for like kids, basically, right? To get kids into the games. Because I think that's how this like hobby expands and like becomes bigger and all that stuff. So I'm happy that they're doing that. I'm not a big Everdell fan. I know a lot of people like Everdell. I'm not a big fan of it. But I'm happy they're making more games like that. Kind of like My Little Site too. And it looked good, right? I saw a bunch of people playing it. I thought it looked good. So I'm trying to think of what else we saw that was pretty interesting. That's really what stood out. So yeah, I think that's everything from PAX that I liked and that I didn't like. I gotta find Aeon's End. That's the big thing. That's the big thing right now is to find Aeon's End. We'll see from it.